Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon on Gulfstream Today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney here to take a look at this afternoon's program. We have 11 races on tap and we are fast and firm on the turf. It's a glorious day here in South Florida and it's perfect weather, actually. A little bit on the chilly side. I shouldn't say that because I talked to my mom this morning. It's like 20 degrees in Maryland.
I was just about to say the same thing. I think my parents were saying they were expecting about 16 inches of snow in Connecticut over the past couple of days. So I'm not going to complain in the least. So get to have a little bit of a sweater, but still no snow boots, and that's fine.
Sweater weather in South Florida. Looking forward to it. And looking forward to our big carryover today in the Rainbow Six. We'll go now to our wagering menu, and of course we start things off in the opener with that rolling super high five that carries on each race of 7 or more betting interest. Race 1 also kicks off that 50-cent early pick 5. Acacia will have a look at that sequence in just a moment. Moving forward to race 6 on the card, that carryover is just shy of pretty much $500,000, so a very nice carryover in that. It's been pretty difficult to hit as of late, as you can see with the big carryover. Race 7 does start the 50-cent late pick 5 as well. Acacia will have a ticket for that too. Fast and firm on the turf with a 12:35 p.m. first, and a reminder from here on out, with the exception of Florida Derby Day, we will have that 12:35 p.m. first post even on the weekends.
Even on the weekends, so don't forget about that. Don't sleep in after daylight saving time. Does give us a little bit more sunlight to work with here.
Let's get to the opener here, and as always, we start off with your early pick 5 ticket, Acacia.
Okay, well, I'm singling in both pick 5s. A little bit of a bold single, that is for sure, in both of them, but using 3 horses to start things off, 2 in the second. I thought that the third, there were just quite a few horses I wanted to use. Now, naturally, it's probably going to be one of the 2 horses that I didn't use on my ticket that will win, but I'm singling in on Divine Miss Gray, big class dropper in the 4th one, heavy favorite in there, and then spreading in the 5th as well, $48.
I like it. $48, a nice affordable ticket for that early pick 5, and we'll start off with the opener, this non-winners of 2 lifetime claiming event for $30,000, a mile and a 16th onto the main track. And we'll start with your top selection here, Acacia. That's the 5 Greatest Game. Second start out of the Eddie Keneally barn, and I believe we have a stat for this.
We do, and the stat just kind of solidified things for me, but in the past 5 years, first time for the tag on the turf. It's not the biggest sample size, but it's been very productive. 5 for 19, 26% win, 58% of the time in the money, and a 234 ROI. This one, he's very nicely bred. He's by Giants Causeway. He's even faced Graded Stakes Company, and he's kin to multiple Graded Stakes winner Stormello, who won more than $700,000. So certainly a lot to like. Second off the layoff, but just maybe that drop in class after not showing up last time will help him to take a step forward.
I think the drop in class will help, and I think this distance will help too. I think both of those factors, one race under his belt, now going the mile and a 16th, will help. I just wonder how much speed he'll show. He didn't show as much speed on the turf. Maybe it was a class factor, but as he did on the synthetic surfaces up at Woodbine. So although I respect that horse, I went with a speed play in the 6 Shiny Badge for trainer Buff Bradley. Showed speed and stopped on the main track last time out. But if you go back to when he faced this level of competition, 2 starts back and even 3 starts back, very competitive. And in those races, I thought there was more speed signed up than what he does face here today. So I thought he could have maybe tactical advantage.
I thought he ran a huge race 2 starts back to be beaten just by 3/4 of a length, and he was the main speed that day, but he was facing some really solid runners in Uncle Guy and Artie type. So I do think that he really showed up in there, and I certainly like him on a speed play too. You can see early on all of the money going to the number 4 Hardly Home. It is an aggressive drop in class, but looking at just its stats for Shug McGahee on the turf, going from allowance to claiming, he is 0 for 5 in the past 5 years. Now, it's not the biggest sample size, but that does kind of signal to me too that he doesn't really do that often. So I kind of took a little bit of the wait and see approach with this horse.
That too, a good stat there. He doesn't do this frequently, and when he does, he doesn't have a lot of success with it. But also that this horse throughout his career has been so reliant on the pace, and I just don't see a contended pace in here. I do think that that's going to probably be his biggest Achilles heel. Although he might have the class advantage, he just doesn't have any natural early speed, so that could be a real issue here in today's opener. We'll get to the 6th race, 6.5 furlongs for this starter allowance optional claimer, and we'll go towards the outside to the 6, Too Clever by Half, fresh off of a victory last time out. This was in the Ladybird Stakes, and I think the key with her, and we'll again show this replay, I think the key with her is she needs a clean break. She needs to be on the lead, especially as the distances progress beyond kind of 3/4. And that's what happened with her last time out. She managed to get to the lead. It doesn't really matter how fast she goes. As long as she's on the lead, she's got enough tenacity to really hold off any potential closers. It did not happen to her 2 starts back, and we saw her be beaten at a short price.
And that's exactly the key. You bring up a good point. She needs to break sharply, and if she doesn't, which we've actually seen sometimes with those speed type horses from Jorge Navarro's barn, if they don't break as sharply as they need to, they can't really recover from that. They don't seem to be as comfortable per se as if they are on the lead, where even when they do get the lead, if there are other horses up there with them, they're still able to carve out a victory. So I did put her on top today. She's a 9-year-old mare. She's definitely tried and tested in every single way that you can possibly look, coming off of that win last time out. But there is some other speed in here, so of course I would not single her, because the concern is if she doesn't break, then what will happen?
And that's the thing. We see other speed types in here. I don't think they're at the same class level, but it could be in the thorn in her side. Obviously, Runaway Train might show speed from the rail. Competitive Player isn't slow. And even Dancing Wind, who's been in excellent form lately, although facing much tougher, isn't that slow. So maybe they're not fast enough to keep up with Too Clever by Half. She could easily wire the field here. So by no means would I say don't use her, or not even don't single her. I was just really interested in the 7 Arella Princess here for Mike Maker. She too comes out of the race last time out in the Ladybird, and she just, again, was beaten significantly against Too Clever by Half. But where I thought that she could get maybe a good setup is now second start off the layoff. She's cutting back in distance, and she should be able, if that pace scenario doesn't fold, she should be waiting in the wings, picking up the pieces. But it's really only if Too Clever by Half doesn't get the lead.
I totally agree with you there. I needed to see Arella Princess take a step forward after those last 2 races. I do agree, second off the layoff, she might be able to move forward, but I kind of thought the same thing with Winning for Sarah, the 5 horse in here, who granted has had kind of a tough time recapturing some of that back form that she does, but she's a horse that was consistently facing stakes company, even trying graded stakes company, and she did kind of get that set up a couple starts back where she was able to close a bit from off of it. So I hope that in her past couple of starts, she's shown a little bit of a glimmer that she's moving back in the right direction. It's a bit of guesswork for sure, but talking about that potential pace scenario, I did think it might set up for somebody to come from a little bit behind.
Well, it does look like Too Clever by Half's race to lose as we get to the 3rd, a maiden special weight on the main track at the 1-turn mile here. And we have the number 5, Awestruck, who is your 8-5 favorite on the morning line. And we wanted to show you a stat here for Awestruck with Rusty Arnold.
And it is a little bit of a cautionary stat. This is second career start in maiden special weight on the dirt. He is just 7 for 53, 13% win, 40% in the money, and it is a negative ROI of 151. Now, certainly do expect her to take a lot of money based off of the race that she's coming out of. She finished 3rd behind 2 next out winners. The winner, Nana Bella, would go on to win her next race with a 78 buyer speed figure. In the second place horse, Salty, would come back to win with an 89 buyer speed figure. So being 3rd behind those 2, you do expect her to take money, but I wasn't completely confident in her on a short price.
And me too, and I think the main reason because Nana Bella, although she won first time out, she came back to regress in really time and by her speed figures in her second start. She went from running a nice figure in her maiden score, and then I think dropped down to maybe the upper 70 by her speed figures in her other than win. Whereas Salty, I thought, was really up against it from a pace scenario. She had to make that last from first move with really not a solid pace in front of her. So in that race, I did think Salty was probably the best because Awestruck was closer to that pace in there, just kind of average. But she did shuffle back slightly. She handled herself well inside of horses, many things you like to see in a first-time starter. So I can't knock her too much here. Instead, though, Acacia, you did go to the 4 Analyze for Michael Matz.
I did, and I think that you can make a case for a lot of horses in this race. It's a small field, but definitely a strong field. So I went with Analyze, who's now second off the layoff. It was about a 4-month break in between her last 2 races, and what I do like about her is that she's got a couple of races going a distance of ground under her belt. And last time out, there was just a lot of moving around early, a lot of moving pieces in that race. She did settle a little bit, and she was moving along the outside while the winner of that race just wired the field. So I think all of those things considered, it was a very strong performance for her. She certainly did take a step forward, beaten just a length. And I do think that now second off the layoff for Michael Matz, she should be able to put up an improved race today.
And that's key, is that it's second start off the layoff, because if you go back and really scrutinize her last performance, she was on the wrong lead. It looked like she was kind of uncomfortable, but that could have been a fitness issue. We always see Michael Matz much stronger with either second or third time starters or second or third off of the shelf. So Analyze could be a contender. The 6 Stay Fond by Stay Thirsty is coming back, making her 3-year-old debut, last seen on the 5th of August at Monmouth. And I thought it actually was a relatively strong race, and she was obviously closer to the pace there, and an average performance, but Party Boat ran in there. She came back to win the Wait a While, reined off onto the main track. She was third, and Here Comes the Bride. Many of the horses in that field went on to become either stakes placed or stakes winners. So I thought that if she can improve upon that race, she could be tough. And Todd, with his maiden special weights on the dirt, they're always kind of ones you got to pay attention to.
Absolutely, and I thought it was actually just an okay performance from her. I thought she kind of got tired and ended up being passed after being forwardly placed in that race, but you did mention the company that she's keeping, and you leave Todd Pletcher and a maiden special weight on the dirt off at your own risk, layoff or not.
Quickly, we should really mention the 2 Our Cause. This is a first-time starter for Chad Brown, a half to going for Broke, who did win in her second start. She was second in the Alabama against Songbird this past summer, so she's got an excellent pedigree here, but we don't really see Chad Brown start horses off going a distance of ground on the main track first asking.
Absolutely, especially here at Gulfstream, we've really seen him getting ready to fire at first asking with a lot of nice firsters on the turf, so perhaps not as much on the dirt, but he also trained going for Broke, so he certainly knows how to do well by the family.
We'll get to the 4th race, an open $16,000 claimer, 6.5 furlongs on the main track. And I think the horse to beat here, Acacia, is the 1 Divine Miss Gray, taking a big drop from Allowance Optional Claiming Company to the $16,000 tag today.
It is a very big drop, and you do kind of wonder because she broke her maiden very nicely against high-level maiden claiming company, $75,000, and I thought it was a big performance from her. She won by open length. She was bet down at 90 cents to the dollar. And then last time out, maybe she didn't really show up that much, but they immediately dropped her down from Allowance Optional Claiming Company, basically putting the for sale sign up. But Brian Lynch did win on Sunday with a big class dropper, and maybe just that aggressive drop. She's just facing, I think, horses that have nowhere near faced as good company as she has.
And I guess the only concern would be maybe the short field and the lack of pace that she showed last time out, but maybe that was a class issue. Maybe to try to beat the favorite, you want to go with horses who might be more forwardly placed, but I really did think that the 3 Loving Valentina was really the only alternative, and I like the cutback in distance, because when she was going through her win streak under the handling of Gennady Dorochenko, and they stretched her out in distance off of a really quick turnaround, I was a little bit apprehensive. I truly do think that shorter distances are better for her.
I do too. She even managed to win at a 6-furlong distance, breaking from post 14 of 14. So I like her much better sprinting. She was the heavy favorite last time out. I do think that was because of the connections. She was also dropping in class last time, but now she's in the barn of Angel Rodriguez, and these connections do an excellent job of just placing horses where they can win.
And I agree with you. The 2 Tanya's Pride could be another one here facing this level of competition. There's no drops in class. There's no really stepping up, but she's been consistent against them. And she actually lost the lead at the half-mile pole. She was inside, and she came back to win her last race. So her last race visually was quite impressive there. We'll take a look at the 5th race to cap off the early pick 5. This maiden special weight going 9 furlongs onto the turf course. And we wanted to go back and show you a spotlight replay of several horses coming out of the same race. And we can kind of see the 1 Mo Light and the 4 Sistine Sista. Mo Light is well off the pace. Sistine Sista is kind of down on the inside. I thought that overall, well, this was Sistine Sista's race 2 starts back. And then we saw Blenheim Palace in here, who was the number 8, and she broke towards the outside. She's kind of getting a perfect trip on the outside, and it looks like it's setting up nicely for it. But Acacia, I did not see really any excuse from her at 4 to 5 last out, whereas we can see the 1 Mo Light checking really, really badly. Now, I didn't think that Mo Light was going to win this race by any means. I thought it was the strongest performance by Sistine Sista. Blenheim Palace after that last race, I just can't take.
I can't either, and she's adding the blinkers on. She was a little bit awkward out of the gate last time too, but I thought that once she got settled, she was bet down as the favorite in her last 3 races, so she's definitely burned quite a bit of money. And looking at first-time blinkers in maiden special weight on the turf, the barn is 3 for 15, and it is just $1.09 ROI, so it is a negative ROI. Maybe those blinkers will help her to break a little bit sharper, but it looks like even in some of her recent races prior to that, she's been beaten without really much excuse. So maybe the light bulb will click with the blinkers. I don't know, especially if she's going to be a short price. She is 3rd off the layoff now too. I did like the number 2, If You Say So, who hasn't raced in about 6 months, but now is in the barn of Chad Brown. She's beautifully bred by Arch. The dam was a stakes winner. She's kin to multiple graded stakes winner Over Heard, who was a 5-time winner on the turf. Now this filly has gone, had quite a few tracks rained off of the turf. She's even tried the synthetic, but we will show a trainer stat on Chad Brown in the past 5 years. First, after the trainer switch on the turf with maidens, he's 41% wins, 65% in the money, and a 263 ROI, and she's been consistent. So maybe a little bit of time off will help her get over that hump and get onto the winner's circle.
And it could be. And Chad Brown acquiring horses, generally speaking, he does a fantastic job. But he's getting this horse off of Graham Motion, who's a fantastic turf trainer, regardless. And he tried so hard to get this filly to break her maiden against maiden special weight company. He took her to Aqueduct, Tampa, Pimlico, Monmouth, Delaware, Presque Isle, and just could not get it done. So I don't know how much Chad Brown can improve this horse. And we did see in the beginning of the meet, Acacia, just horses coming from the Mid-Atlantic and especially Delaware over the summer during kind of some of the turf races. We saw that they really kind of needed to take a drop in class in order to break their maiden. So I do use their second. I'm just playing devil's advocate because with the trainer change, I just don't know if it's overly significant. But the 5 Tisbury, look, this horse doesn't seem to want to win either. And last time out, she sits on a very, very bad performance. So always scared to see that. But she did show a little bit of early footing that was on the main track. She's probably going to be 10 times more fit today, now coming back to a preferred surface. And this is second start out of the Bill Mott barn. And I thought that that was key. And she's not slow. She could be tactically placed here.
She's not. And you kind of brought up the concerns that I had about her too, and I guess that really is the question mark in this race. Is you have these nicely bred fillies who have put up some solid performances, but they're racking up their defeats. Each of them actually in this race has had some races where they just haven't had excuses. So that is really the thing in here too. Of course, now last time Tisbury was first time for Bill Mott. It was just a ton of scratches in that race. She went off the favorite because I think the connections were bet. I don't think she liked anything about the sloppy track that day, so I certainly respect her. It's just that she does have those 4 races in a row where she's finished second.
And closely too.
Yes.
It's not like she's been well distanced. It's like she gets to the other horse and she just does not want to win. But now Bill Mott, first time on the turf for Bill Mott. So I thought that was key. That is races 1 through 5. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at the 20-cent Rainbow 6, a big carryover today, and the late pick 5 right after this commercial break.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Now looking at the second half of today's program in race 6. It does kick off the 20-cent Rainbow 6. We've got a carryover just shy of $500,000. So a lot of money up for grabs, and I thought that it was a manageable sequence, but I did not find a single here. So going light in a couple of legs of the sequence, especially the first leg. City section, 8 to 5 on the morning line is probably the horse to beat, but I was interested in the pedigree of the 2 Heavenly Lucky. So just using 2 horses here by 3, by 3, by 3, by 3, and then capping it off with the 3 and the 9 in today's finale for $64.80. My initial ticket was closer to $100. I'm not really promoting saying if you're a single bettor and trying to put that much money into a ticket, if you're kind of playing on a more limited bankroll, then this is kind of the base for you. But if you have a couple friends, maybe try to spend a few more bucks, because I thought the last leg of the sequence, you could use a few more contenders there. So we'll start it off with this maiden claiming event, 7.5 furlongs onto the turf, Acacia. And the 2 Heavenly Lucky, first and foremost, the reason why I picked this horse was because of the turf pedigree. She's by Looking at Lucky, and on the bottom side, she's kin to 2 other turf winners. The mare, well, she was all turf too.
Absolutely, and the dam one on turf, as you said, and she's akin to a multiple graded stakes winner named Ventana, who did win twice on the synthetic, but she actually was stakes placed on the turf, or he was, excuse me, stakes placed on the turf as well. So I do think there's some good turf pedigree there that's worth noting. And looking at the barn, Nick Zito, first time on the turf and maiden claiming. He is just 12% win, but it's an ROI of more than $3. He's got some horses that are ready to fire at a good price, and this horse is 12 to 1 on the morning line, and I actually was in agreement with you. The one City section is going to be such a short price, but she's already 0 for 15 and just has really been racking up those defeats.
And 0 for 14 on the turf too. And but Tom Bush, his horses have been running fantastic. He had a big win at Tampa last weekend, and he also had a nice first-time starter get the money here last weekend too. So City section I thought was the horse to beat, because the other ones, they're just kind of inconsistent, I guess is the best way to put it. The 6 Street Performer I thought might have been the more legitimate horse in here, who has speed going 2 turns, but I can't fully be confident in her either.
No, and I liked her because she was the speed, but she was running against maiden claiming types at Tampa in her 2 turf races, and she still was unfortunately beaten in those events. And the 4 SS Illuminati does have Louis Sias in the saddle, which is always a good thing. Added the blinkers on last time. Maybe she'll be a bit more forwardly placed, but she didn't really finish up great last time. Even though the rider lost his whip last time out with this horse, I just still, off of her races so far, didn't think she was quite at the level of a couple of the other contenders in here.
Let's hope Nick Zito, first-time turf, can bring home the money. And actually, you know, we don't really think of Nick Zito, first-time turf, as, you know, the sure bet in any race. But his horses on the turf this meet have actually been running fantastic. We get to the 7th race here to kick off the 50-cent late pick 5. Acacia, let's see it.
All right, well, another single for me today, but it is, again, a little bit of a question. I'm using 3 horses in here to start things off, spreading a bit in the 8th race with 4 horses. That maiden claiming I wanted some coverage, 3 in the 9th. My single will come in the 10th with Adulator. I do think it is a tough field, but I thought that he was the most logical horse in that spot. And then using 3 horses in the finale, I agree with you, I think, to cap things off. Hopefully we get there and we can have a little bit of coverage in the last leg for 54.
I think you have the right 3 here to start things off with the 2, 5, and the 6. We'll actually start maybe, I guess, with the first-time starter for Todd Pletcher. Always a good place to start. Who I think you have to use to kick off the pick 5, the Big Fundamental by Uncle Mo. And this horse has got a good pedigree. I mean, the mare actually took a couple of starts to break her maiden, finally did it against Maiden Special Weight Company in the mud. But this horse is a half-to a stakes winner who also took a long time to break its maiden. So although this is a first-time starter on the dirt for Todd, I thought kind of got a lukewarm vibe from him.
Absolutely. Well, of course, the story here is that this horse is owned by Todd and his father, Jake. So he was a $550,000 purchase, as you said, by Uncle Mo. And the horse that he's kin to, Hightail, his stakes win was actually his only win, and that was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Sprint. So certainly not a bad place to break your maiden, but he didn't do it the normal way, I guess you would say. But I do think that there's some ups and some downs about this horse. So we both use him a little bit further down on the ticket, but I do agree you absolutely have to use him. We both go back to Chad Brown on the dirt, but the 6 Karma Delight hasn't unfortunately been able to get onto, I think, a preferred surface. I guess it really is all guesswork, but I loved the work tab on this one. Ended up on the mud on the Innerid Aqueduct last time out and just did not seem to take to that at all. He's by Medaglia d'Oro and akin to multiple graded stakes winner Brilliant Speed.
And I guess something must have gone a little bit awry in that last race because it was followed by a couple of months on the shelf, and now they kind of brought him down to Palm Meadows, retooled him, and keeping him against Maiden Special Weight Company, which I thought was really encouraging because his first race actually wasn't that bad, although a lot of the horses in that field, of course, were turf horses because it was rained off. So he's another one that you kind of get a lukewarm vibe from. But the 2 Providence Road, I remember seeing this horse last time out, a big, beautiful looking horse, and I do think that the stretch out in distance to the mile will only help him.
I do too, and we'll show a trainer stat on Graham Motion in the past 5 years. Second after the layoff in maiden special weight on the dirt. 24% wins, 62% in the money, and a positive ROI. And he debuted at Laurel, then wasn't seen again for about 13 months, came back. It was a sealed, sloppy track last time. He was a well-beaten second, but I think that race last time can have done nothing but give him more fitness.
And I don't even know if he really liked the sloppy sealed track last time out. So if he didn't, and now he's got that under his belt and more distance, maybe he's going to be the winner. Like I said, he was a very big, good-looking horse. So the mile, I think, might be even more preferred than 7 furlongs. That is the 7th as we take a look at the 8th, 7.5 furlongs on the turf. And we'll go back to the gate for the 4 Little Nicole last time out. This was this 3-year-old filly's first performance in her career. She is the number 8 in here, kind of towards the outside. And you can see her actually turn her head towards the inside, and it's really hard to tell, but it almost looked like Tyler might have dropped the reins a little bit coming out of the gate. Maybe not, maybe it was the whip. It's really hard to tell. But anyway, she didn't get off to a great start, really slowly, and then from there she was kind of wide coming down the stretch, and then she really just picked it up, and we could see her find kind of a second win coming down the stretch. Of course, we see the winner on the front end, the pace actually kind of hanging in there, and then the horse just to his inside kind of floating out. So it wasn't like he was in an all-out drive coming to the finish. Or moral of the story here, I do think that 5 furlongs was too short for her.
I think so too. I like the stretch out in distance. I like going 2 turns. She was closing in the center of the track last time out, and I thought it was a very game performance. It seemed like the light bulb kind of clicked after a while, after that slow start, after she got into the race. Then it looked like she was a bit more all business when you did see some horses towards the rail that were really looking very green in that race. She has Jose Ortiz in the saddle, which is never a bad thing. I did like her. I liked the 3 Stolen Sunday, though, too, who added the blinkers last time out and just had no room last time out, kept getting pushed closer to the rail, and it did end up finishing well on the outside last time. So now, second time with the blinkers, has had a couple of starts and actually stepped up a little bit in class last time out, but I think after that performance should be able to run another good race, hopefully get a cleaner trip.
And I thought she was improving with distance, so I was surprised to see them kind of cut back in distance with her, because from 5 furlongs to 7.5 to the mile, it seemed like she was progressing pretty nicely. So that was the only reason, but with a good inside post today, and the fact that she was kind of hindered by the pace scenario last time out, it could all move her forward. Other than that, we do have the 2 in here, Debbie's Cute Ghost, a horse that I use just underneath, because if you look at actually her previous turf races, she's technically dropping from maiden special weight company to the maiden 35 today. So I thought she was an interesting one. Other than that, I don't know. I just used a couple in this leg.
I agree. You do have a first-time starter on the turf from Christophe Clement in the 8 Giants Causey. Now, of course, the question with that is that she was a $145,000 purchase, debuting for the $35,000 tag. The dam was a graded stakes winner, so she's nicely bred, but a little bit of hesitancy seeing her debut solo, especially for that barn.
And I think it's because although the mare, she was a grade 3 winner, her foals really haven't done anything since then. So this is probably the right spot for her, but I agree, taking a cautionary approach with that first-time starter. We get to the 9th race to start the final pick 3 of the day. We're going the mile for this starter allowance optional claimer, and we'll go back to take a look at a performance that both Grace Appeal and Queen del Valet do come out of, and Queen del Valet does draw post 9 with some of the scratches in here. This day, though, she was number 9. We can see the 10 Grace Appeal actually on the front end. And Grace Appeal, we see last time out, she drew from the way outside post position, and that was going 7.5 furlongs. So she showed enough speed to make the lead, and she just could not hang on to finish. She ceded the lead to really set it up for Queen del Valet. But the curious thing about it, and I still think that Queen del Valet is a better horse in here, Grace Appeal draws a much better post position than she did last time out. So maybe it'll be easier for her to get the lead.
And another key thing is that the horse right next to her, Little Shade, was scratched, who promised to be a big part of the pace scenario. I thought that she was going to show a lot of speed. So now she could really be just the main speed from the rail. I actually did try and spread a little bit more to include her on my pick 5 ticket because of that reason. But Queen del Valet, I mean, there's not really much to knock about her. She's 7 for 9 lifetime. Since she was claimed and since she moved on to the turf, she's only been beaten once, where she was still beaten by just half a length to finish 4th at Tampa for trainer Reed Nagel. So she's been in excellent form, winning the Mrs. President's last time out. But she's outside, and you just kind of wonder, is she going to just keep on winning? Because that seems to be all she does is win.
It is a good question, and obviously I think you have to use her protectively in those multi-race sequences, but could also get creative. I do like the one more and more that I look at this race, but the 4 Basilica is one first off the claim for Larry Ravelli, who does great work with this angle.
Yes, he does. In the past 5 years, we'll show you this stat. First off the claim on the turf, he's 37% win, 13 for 35, 54% in the money, and a 283 ROI. And this is another horse that's been in great form. She won by open lengths, going 9 furlongs on the turf, 2 starts back, and won by more than 6 lengths last time out when cutting back to the 7.5 furlongs. So she's shown a lot of versatility and does have Javier Castellano in the saddle again.
And even I was looking up the same statistics because I was kind of confused. I wanted to beat the favorite in here, and I looked up that stat, but I actually zeroed in on turf routes first off the claim, and he's 42% and a positive ROI of $3.40. So it's just very strong for Larry Ravelli, and this horse has been in very good form in the past 2 starts, and I don't think they've been flukes. I really think that she just needed a little bit of a class relief. So now that she's in good form, I think that'll give her good momentum to face this field here today. We get to the 10th, the 2 other than allowance optional claimer, the 1-turn mile, and we have the return of several horses in here that figure to get bet. We'll start with the Todd Pletcher horse with the 2 Rally Cry, and we'll go back to his performance. This is 2 starts back actually at Belmont, going the mile in a 16th against first level allowance horses. Now, I never really know what to do with this horse because he was clearly precocious. He won in his 2nd start. He was a really highly touted horse, obviously going against Shaggoff, who was touted too, kind of leading into the Triple Crown or leading into Kentucky Derby and some of the preps. Last time out and in this race was obviously a much easier race than what he had been competing against prior to this. His last race in the Easy Goer, it looked like nobody really wanted to go to the lead. It was kind of an awkward race. The question is, where has he been in the time being?
And you bring up a good point, because saying I don't know what to do with this horse is just exactly how I feel. I don't completely trust him in this race, and to be honest, I never really did. He was always very highly touted, and I remember watching his race right after he broke his maiden, and how he had a lot of trouble in that race. He had to be steadied. He took some dirt in his face. It really looked like a learning opportunity. Then they put him right into the Gotham. I don't know if it was the Graded Stakes Company, the Intertrack at Aqueduct. He didn't show up in there. And then, as you mentioned, he won in that allowance race that we just watched. And he's just kind of a tough horse to really read and to figure out. And I like him. I will use him in my top 3 in here. It is Todd Pletcher, coming off of a layoff, does an excellent job, but just proceeding with a bit of caution with this one.
And the 9 Adulator was a horse that I believe you singled on your late pick 5. I couldn't be that bold. I still don't quite trust this horse, but we'll show you his performance. This was actually 3 starts back prior to the layoff. This was on the 11th of September of last year when he was just beaten as the favorite against 2 other than Allowance Company. And if you look at kind of his form, and we'll just talk about him as this replay runs, because there's not really much you can decipher from this race. I almost think that he's a horse that might like it shorter distances. They first started him sprinting, going 6 furlongs. They steadily started to progress in distances. Yes, he's won at 9 furlongs, but I think he's a handy horse really at any distance you put him.
I think so too. So off of a bit of the layoff, he's been off for about 4 months. He cuts back a little bit to the mile here, which I think is going to be just fine for him. And we'll show a trainer stat on Jimmy Jerkins in the past 5 years, going 61 to 180 day layoffs on the dirt. He's 21% win, 55% in the money, and a positive ROI of 218. And the reason that I really wanted to show this stat was because sometimes we kind of look at the barn, perhaps it's not doing so well immediately off the layoff. But even lately, we've been seeing a lot of horses coming off extended layoffs, even seeing a horse making her North American debut in Team of Teams winning the other day, and of course Unified coming off an extended layoff to win in Graded Stakes Company. So I don't think that the layoff is any problem. This horse has faced tough company in his past few starts, so I really like him in this spot.
And if you're looking at layoffs, I think, you know, they probably just freshened this horse since the fall, whereas Rally Cry, we haven't seen him since midsummer. So I don't think that that's a I think it's a lesser problem for Adulator, but just for exacta purposes, I wanted to get creative because those are clearly the 2 horses that you have to beat in here. And some people will single on Adulator, some people will probably just use Rally Cry and Adulator. But I thought the 7 Dreams Saturday had some back races that would actually be okay. This is a horse who's a 4-time winner. He's a 3-time winner on a fast main track, and he's been able to compete against even 3 other than Allowance Company. He competed against Grade 1 Company at Del Mar, and I just think he's a better horse on the dirt, and I don't mind him at this distance.
I don't either. I kind of wanted to see one from him, but you certainly can't knock the last work. Gulfstream Park West, 4 furlongs and 48 flat. It's been since 2015 since the last time that he got a win, but maybe he can get a slice in here. I had some interest in the 3 Bluegrass Singer, 1 of 2 for Dale Romans, and he stretches out a little bit in distance, but I think even with apprentice Nicky Figueroa in the saddle, he is going to be the speed of the speed with that inside post, and that maybe can help him to hang on in the exacta bit of a price.
And he's always been a really big horse that holds a lot of condition, so it figures that he's actually improving with each start off of the layoff, and maybe he could run his best race today for the barn. We get to the 11th and final, a $16,000 non-winners of 3 lifetime claiming event, a mile onto the turf, and I had a little bit of a tough time with this race, so I just landed on the 3 Parting Gift. I'm really banking on the hopes that Nick Zito is going to have a good day on the turf today. But his race last time out, I see Supreme Commander obviously did beat him, but I thought he was really hindered by the slow pace. We see them go the mile and a 16th and 25 and change, 50 and change for the half, and he really, as well as others, just weren't making up a lot of ground.
I totally agree with you. I kind of landed on him for the same reason that he was up against it last time. He was also drawn far to the outside. And looking at Supreme Commander, yes, he was beaten just ahead last time out, and he was far improved on the drop in class versus his a couple starts back, but I just still didn't really trust him completely. I did like Golden Pirate, the 8, as a main speed play in here, as I do think Supreme Commander really first of all, where did that race come from? Was it just the drop in class? And is he going to be able to make up ground and not be too pace dependent?
I thought it was the drop in class that really helped him, so that's where I did find a little bit of faith in just using my top 2 horses. But I said, if you are playing on a bigger bankroll, maybe use 4 horses in here. I know we both used the 5 Regal Kitten, who I thought really got away with average fractions. He sat closer to the pace when they went a little bit slower. Nobody really wanted to go, and he fortunately unfortunately caught himself in a very fortunate position. So whereas before he was really pace dependent, so I don't know if he's going to be that close today. And I thought that made all the difference last time out.
It really did. And again, that's why I kind of like the speed of Golden Pirate. And it will be interesting to see how the pace scenario shakes out in this last race, and to see if any of the horses that we like will be able to get the ideal setup that they'll need for the finale.
Well, we shall see. Once again, a reminder, we have that pick six carryover that starts in the sixth race of $494,000. It's going to be a great day. We're looking forward to it. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon on Gulfstream today. Pete Aiello will be up next with those scratches and changes. Best of luck.
We have to take care of these horses that, give us so much joy.